Welcome. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Emily Stevenson, your online membership manager, and I'll be moderating tonight's event featuring Elizabeth Zirkon, Managing Director of our Corporate Partnerships team, Boma Brown-West, Senior Manager of Consumer Health, and Jenny Allen, Director for Supply Chain. Before we get started, I do want to call your attention to the box marked Your Questions to the right of the slide area, which you can also make visible by clicking the red Q&A icon at the far right dock at the bottom of your screen. We put this event together because we want you, our members, to have a chance to learn and ask questions about the work that your donations make possible. Throughout the presentation, you can enter your questions for our team there, and we'll get to as many as we can during the Q&A portion. If we aren't able to answer your question on the air, we'll do our best to follow up with you over email. You'll also find an icon of a clipboard in your doc. That's a quick 3-question feedback survey that we hope you'll complete before signing off tonight to let us know how we did. Finally, if you're having any technical difficulties, please use the orange question mark icon at the far left of your doc to get assistance. And without any further delay, I will turn things over to our first speaker, Elizabeth.
Thank you, Emily, and thank you everyone for joining us this evening. I'm Elizabeth Zirkon. I'm Managing Director for our supply chain work with companies. And I think as members, you all know the core work of EDF. For almost 50 years, we've worked to solve the most critical environmental challenges facing the planet. This draws us to work in the areas that span the biosphere and those who live in it: climate, oceans, ecosystems, and health. Our goals for each of these areas are ambitious. We realize with the election last week that the landscape we work in is very different than it was. EDF is committed to defend the progress we have made on the environment and will continue to move forward with speed and scale to address the challenges ahead. One of the best ways to continue to make progress right now is with EDF's work with business. EDF plus Business works across all of EDF's programs so we can leverage the power of the marketplace. We are working to green the global supply chain so that every product will be safer, healthier, and better for the environment. Today, we're going to discuss our work on health and focus on EDF's quest to tackle all the toxic chemicals contained in the products that each and every one of us use every day. We are facing challenges on a planetary scale that only big thinking and powerful action can solve. By 2050, the world will be home to 9.5 billion people, and they will all be consumers demanding food, water, energy, and also products such as refrigerators, computers, lights, and even cars. We all know consumer goods bring many benefits to life, but they are also responsible for some of our biggest environmental harms. They account for 60% of greenhouse gas emissions, 80% of all water withdrawals, and fully 2/3 of tropical deforestation. This literally touches on every facet of EDF's work. But the good news is the consumer goods supply chain also presents us with enormous opportunities. At EDF, we know that when the products we use every day are designed, sourced, produced, distributed, and then disposed of sustainably, everyone wins. Business wins because it becomes more efficient and resilient. Consumers win because they have products that are safer and healthier for them. And then the planet wins, of course, because much less demand is placed on its air, land, and water. So our green supply chain work targets change leaders in global retail, consumer goods, and grocery supply chains that have the power to address the priorities laid out in EDF's strategic plan, Blueprint 2020. By bringing together a deep knowledge of business and policy and science, and building on EDF's unique history of companies working together with environmentalists, we're having great success creating environmental solutions that are both scalable and transparent. It's a textbook example of EDF's pragmatic slogan, finding the ways that work. And it's the reason why I feel so hopeful in this time of uncertainty about our government. Now I'm going to turn it over to Jenny Allen to talk about how we're going about creating this everyone wins scenario. Jenny?
Thanks, Elizabeth. I'm Jenny Allen, a director for our retail team, and I work out of EDF's Bentonville office and have a specific focus on retail, food, and sustainable agriculture. So how does a small environmental NGO like EDF hope to accomplish creating real change across something as vast and complex as a global supply chain? Well, it's all about leverage. Since we first partnered with McDonald's 25 years ago, we discovered that big food companies, retailers, and consumer products companies have the leverage to change how things are done. These companies have the power, and EDF scientists, economists, and lawyers have the expertise to channel that power in service of the environment. When powerful business speaks, their thousands of suppliers, manufacturers, and distributors respond. By committing to sell products made in sustainable ways or with sustainable ingredients, then everyone in the chain, from farmers and chemical producers to agribusinesses and distributors, will take action to make the end product safer and more sustainable. Then we demonstrate how other companies can make similar advances. Their suppliers respond to meet that demand, designing and producing better products and systems that benefit consumers. So given this, who we choose to work with is one of the utmost strategic importance. Like EDF, EDF Plus Business is completely solutions-driven. We want to drive the biggest changes possible to deliver the biggest results. Here are 5 of the top grossing retailers in the world today. As you can see from millions and millions of dollars of annual revenue they have, these are enormous brands, and you probably shop at many of them. Based on their size, you'd probably think they'd be a good place to focus a lot of our time and effort. And you'd be right until you see how they compare to Walmart. People often ask us why we work with Walmart, and this shows you why. In terms of sheer scale, power, and leverage, Walmart is in a completely different universe. With its 100,000 suppliers, each of whom wants to reach Walmart's 6 million daily customers, Walmart has the power to change entire industries. But we promised that we'd show you how EDF Plus Business's approach applies to toxic chemicals. One of the industries we're working to help change is consumable products, the soaps, lotions, and creams that each and every one of us use every day. The world we want for our children is the same one you want for you and your loved ones, one in which we can all thrive. But the truth is that we live in an industrial chemical soup. The air we breathe, the water we drink, the food we eat, and the household products we use every day layer more and more chemicals into our bodies. How many? When the Centers for Disease Control looks at blood samples of pregnant American women and others, it finds hundreds of commercially used chemicals. What's the risk? Emerging science is increasingly linking this everyday chemical exposure to breast and brain cancers, infertility, Parkinson's, behavioral and learning problems, and more. But consumers are starting to speak out. These are just a few of the recent surveys that show that consumers want to know what's in their products, and they want assurances that the products they buy and bring into their homes are safe for them and their families. As consumers become more and more aware of the impact that ingredients can have on their health, they are asking business to lead, to offer products made with safer ingredients and materials. And business has been listening. To tell you about that and to tell you more about our work with these businesses, I'm turning it over to Boma Brown West.
Thanks, Jenny. I'm Boma Brown West, a senior manager for our supply chain team. I work out of EDF's Washington, D.C. office and specifically focus on the chemical ingredients that make up consumer products. Jenny's exactly right. Business has steadily been taking notice of customer demand for safer products, and we're seeing an increasing rise of new brands that base their missions on providing safer products to people, brands using free of claims to woo consumers, and retailers like Walmart committing to remove problematic chemicals from their store shelves. In fact, Walmart didn't just want to make a commitment, they wanted to take a leadership position on the issue. So in 2013, Walmart published its Sustainable Chemistry Policy, which focuses on ingredient transparency and advancing safer product formulations in household and personal care products. EDF worked with Walmart as it developed this policy, and together we focused on its implementation, specifically regarding the commitment to remove 8 high-priority chemicals of concern. Our hypothesis was this: by focusing direct action on a select few high-priority chemicals instead of hundreds at a time, like many of Walmart's counterparts attempt to do, Walmart would be able to drive faster, measurable reductions. So what are these high-priority chemicals of concern? They're propylparaben, butylparaben, nonylphenol ethoxylates, formaldehyde, dibutyl phthalate, diethyl phthalate, triclosan, and toluene. These names may be unfamiliar to you, but they are ubiquitous in cleaning, cosmetics, and personal care products. They provide different functions in products, like preservatives, fragrance carriers, or surfactants, but their potential impact to our health and the environment are very concerning. They appear on a number of lists called authoritative lists that are created by scientific and government bodies like the EU and EPA that name chemicals known or suspected to be hazardous. There are serious concerns about these chemicals, including cancer, reproductive toxicity, and endocrine disruption. So Walmart had set a goal, but setting a goal is one thing. Actually reaching that goal is something else. And this is where the power of our partnership comes in. Like all of EDF's work, ours revolves around achieving solutions through methods that are measurable, replicable, and scalable. In our work with retailers, brands, and others in the product supply chain, we've identified 5 leadership pillars that are critical for businesses to adopt when it comes to the future that we envision of thriving companies, thriving communities, and thriving environment. Our 5 pillars are institutional commitment, supply chain transparency, informed consumers, product design, public commitment. Now, why have I highlighted the 3 pillars in the middle? Because each one represents a facet of chemicals transparency, the philosophy that underpins our journey with Walmart on rooting out toxic chemicals. So if Walmart really wanted to lead on the reduction of toxic chemicals, the first thing we insisted upon was supply chain transparency. So what is supply chain transparency? Supply chain transparency means that the names and safety information of chemicals and products, whether intentionally added or not, move down the supply chain unobstructed, from chemical manufacturer all the way down to retailer. And the reason is that if a company has a flawed picture of what's going into their product and of the safety of those substances, then they have a flawed picture of their product's impact. This opens the company up to risk and makes them unable to communicate product ingredient information or set useful goals to improve their products. But transparency is easier said than done. Chemical supply chains are notoriously murky, if not downright convoluted. So what did EDF and Walmart do to bring transparency to the supply chain? Walmart required suppliers to submit full product formulations, otherwise known as the names and concentrations of all ingredients in a product, to a third-party database. This helped Walmart gain access to aggregate information on the types and amounts of chemicals in the products on its shelves. It also enabled the policy implementation to be based on real data and empowered Walmart to drive change and measure progress, all while protecting proprietary information. So let's talk about the results. Walmart reported that in the first few years of the policy enactment, they are already up to 94% of the product formulations in their database being full formulations. Real data equals real power to drive change and measure it. This is leadership. But a huge part of the story was missing. No one outside of Walmart and EDF actually knew the names of all the high-priority chemicals. So if a supplier's product contained one of the high priority 8, they received a notification, but Walmart wasn't sharing the full list with anyone. Meanwhile, companies needed to know what to stay away from, and researchers can't innovate new solutions if they don't know where to focus attention. Furthermore, EDF firmly believed that customers deserved to know what was being done on their behalf. And the reason is our next critical pillar of leadership, informed consumers. Informed consumers means people have readily available access to product information that is comprehensive, understandable, and meaningful. So why is it important? Well, disclosure enables people to make informed purchase decisions that truly meet their needs. It also builds people's confidence, trust, and loyalty. People want to know what is in their products and why, and they want to know what measures a company has taken to ensure the safety of the product. People deserve easy access to information, whether it's on the packaging or online. By not releasing the names of the 8 chemicals, Walmart was failing this pillar. So EDF plus Business pushed back, and we pushed back hard. Through our blogs and our internal communications with them, we let Walmart know in no uncertain terms that they had to release the names. Several months after making the 95% reduction announcement, Walmart finally publicly released the names. Meanwhile, what else was Walmart doing to foster informed consumers? In their policy, they had called for online disclosure of all ingredients in the products covered by the policy. According to the results of Walmart's Sustainability Index, their annual environmental issues survey sent out to suppliers, 78% of respondents reported that they now share ingredient information online for every product they sell globally. And Walmart itself began sharing ingredient lists by product for their own private label products like Equate Body Wash. So for the informed consumers pillar, things are moving in a really good direction. But locating where the toxic chemicals were hidden and naming them is still only part of a successful journey. What about replacing the hazardous chemicals with safer ingredients? The third essential pillar for leadership is product design. Safer product design means that when you're manufacturing and selling products, you select ingredients that are safer for human health and the environment while phasing out the use of toxic chemicals. It's about implementing a design approach that elevates, promotes, and ensures safer products. This step separates the companies that just talk the talk from those that make real, measurable progress towards safer products. With safer product design, you look at your ingredient selection process and ask, am I basing my decisions on the most up-to-date science? Am I getting a complete picture of potential impacts? Is there something newer and safer out there that can be used to provide the function or performance that I want? You see, one of the challenges we're fighting against is the long-standing yet bad idea that toxic chemicals are okay to use in consumer products if we just use a little bit. EDF is a strong advocate for starting with the safest ingredients from the outset. We had made the case from the beginning that what goes into a product is as important as what is taken out. Walmart listened, and their policy prioritizes safer products for customers by first explicitly calling for the reduction, restriction, and elimination of Walmart's priority chemicals of concern, based on a list of 16 of the reputable regulatory and authoritative lists of problematic chemicals that I mentioned earlier, and by requiring the use of informed substitution principles to ensure that bad was replaced by better. Walmart also established a strong measurement plan to chart progress. They used 2 powerful metrics to track reduction of the high priority chemicals of concern. The first one, ubiquity, looking at the number of products on store shelves that contain priority chemicals and the number of suppliers using priority chemicals in their products. The second metric was total chemical mass going out the door, measured in the pounds of priority chemicals in sold products. What did they do to prevent bad from replacing bad? Well, they also tracked whether there were any upticks in the use of chemicals of concern on their larger list. And Walmart didn't stop at just measuring the data. Prompted by what the data revealed, Walmart identified the greatest opportunities to work with specific suppliers to drive progress against their goals. They met with suppliers. They demanded reformulation plans. They were proactive in working with suppliers to effect change. And we're happy to say that this thoughtful approach has reaped promising results so far. Walmart has accomplished something that no other retailer ever has: a 95% reduction, which is 23 million pounds, in the use of publicly disclosed high-priority chemicals of concern. They have the data to back it up, and they've shared much of that publicly too, something that EDF pushed very strongly for. This is a retailer first. And it's a great initial result, but there's more to do. While Walmart reduced the total mass of high-priority chemicals by 95%, these chemicals are still frequently being used at a lesser amount across products and suppliers. Only full elimination of these chemicals across all the products ensures zero exposure to the consumer and zero impact on their health. Now, Walmart can't solve this alone, but it can encourage suppliers who are already using safer alternatives to share their success stories, spurring others to join them. Walmart can also work with suppliers and upstream manufacturers to identify solutions to the issues hindering widespread elimination, like misaligned business incentives or lack of broadly applicable viable chemical substitutes. Walmart also has a prime opportunity to show additional leadership in its own private label products. In its 2013 policy, Walmart pledged to increase private label offerings certified by Safer Choice, a voluntary U.S. EPA program that recognizes and brings consumer awareness to products using safer ingredients. Walmart hasn't delivered on this yet, but we believe they can join the ranks of other retailers like Wegmans and Albertsons, who have successfully increased their offerings of Safer Choice products and work to educate consumers about the program. Our work with Walmart to usher in safer products has been really successful so far, and we look forward to continuing it in the future. But if we want full transformation, there's another part of the system that we need to engage in, and that is making sure that the pipeline of safer ingredients is full and ready to use, and that safety information that proves these alternatives are safer is shared up and down the value chain. So, what have we been doing in this regard? First, we're part of multi-stakeholder collaborations like the Sustainability Consortium, which cuts across the value chain from chemical manufacturers and brands to other NGOs and retailers. The goal is to find solutions to the bottlenecks in the system that hinder safer chemical development and commercialization. We're also part of a collaborative innovation challenge to identify safer preservatives, a functional class with many problematic chemicals. And finally, EDF is leading a project to show companies better ways of mapping out where safer innovation is necessary and how to more effectively compare chemical alternatives with safety as top of mind. But that's not all. We're expanding our work from what goes on our bodies to what goes in them. And I'm going to pass the baton back to Jenny to describe this further.
Thanks, Boma. Based on the progress with chemicals in household and personal care products that Boma just described, Walmart has asked EDF what a strategy for addressing food additives, the chemicals in food, what would that look like? And it's no wonder why. People want simple, healthy food. Probably many of you have read about food scares like the yoga mat plasticizer and Subway bread. and carcinogens in Pepsi's caramel coloring. Food additives are used for a huge variety of reasons: to color foods, to make them more stable on the shelf, to improve their consistency, and to add flavor. But when it comes to what we put in our mouths, the federal system for protecting us from harmful chemicals is broken. As I've come to learn, of more than 10,000 chemical additives allowed in food and food packaging, including known hazards like phthalates and BPA, less than half have ever been tested for safety. And companies have used a loophole in the law to introduce nearly 1,000 secret food chemicals without even notifying the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, the federal agency in charge. New chemicals are constantly coming onto the market, and top officials at the agency have admitted they cannot vouch for their safety. And people are speaking out. This larger focus on simpler, healthier, affordable food is being driven by Walmart's top leadership. As we work to develop recommendations for tackling problematic chemical additives in food and food packaging, we're also meeting with food manufacturers and other retailers trying to address growing consumer concerns. Similar to household and personal care products, we see a tremendous opportunity to leverage the power of the supply chain to improve the safety of food on shelves, while at the same time building pressure for an improved regulatory system. Our Pillars of Leadership model is perfectly adapted to these new challenges. And now I'm going to turn it back over to Elizabeth for the final word.
Thanks, Jenny. Customers really care about safer products, and EDF has 25 years of experience showing that being proactive on sustainability really drives business value. Because of that, I really believe that we'll continue to make forward progress on all of the issues that we care about. We've used this approach with the supply chain in our areas of biggest environmental challenge and are having tremendous success driving change on the ground. A few examples are our work to reduce carbon pollution from agriculture, a source of nearly 30% of global emissions, by using the power of retail to send a demand signal for fertilizer optimization on the farm, and by partnering with food companies like General Mills and Campbell Soup to achieve our goals. Our work to drive net zero deforestation by using the power of companies to demand deforestation-free commodities like beef, paper, and soy, and measure progress transparently. And using the power of the marketplace to improve products and packaging in a step towards a circular economy. Together, we can create a more sustainable world where companies, communities, and the environment thrive. Companies look to EDF because we have invested the time and the effort to understand their industries and create solutions that work. This work will be even more critical in the next 4 years as companies lead the charge to move us forward on sustainability. Our long-term partnership with Walmart will remain central to our supply chain sustainability efforts. We will work to help the company achieve its just-announced aggressive 2025 goals for sustainability, including climate protection, safer products, and waste reduction. And we will continue to link arms with other retailers and companies up and down the supply chain. Our goal is simple. It's to drive real, measurable, and lasting progress for all people and for the planet, and I'm very hopeful we'll get there. Thank you all.
Thank you for that great presentation. We're going to move on to the question and answer now. We've got quite a few to get through, so we'll jump right in with a question from Irene, who asks, I'm a little unsure of the outcome at Walmart. Is it true that Walmart's U.S. stores are no longer selling any product with the chemicals of concern?
Hi, Irene. This is Boma. I can answer that. So what they committed to is to reduce and eventually eliminate these chemicals. And, the policy started a few years ago. They've been able to make some really great progress so far with a continued eye towards that elimination. With the 95% reduction that they were able to achieve, they've made some really, really great progress so far.
Thank you. We have our next question from Isabel, who says, you said the focus was on 9 chemicals. What is the plan for the remaining chemicals?
Yeah, so it was 8 chemicals. I don't know if we wanted to go back to that slide or not. And okay, yeah. So yeah, there were 8 high priority chemicals that were the major focus of their work. Thank you.
And the plan for the rest of the chemicals, Boma, do you want to say some more about what EDF's plan is to continue to work in this area?
Sure. Yeah, this was just our starting point. You know, as I mentioned earlier, our hypothesis was that if we narrowed down on a select few, we'd be able to drive faster results. And we have been able to do that. And so we're definitely continuing to work with Walmart on continuing this policy, on making sure that they get more reductions on these chemicals, but then also the other chemicals that they've been tracking as this policy goes along. And as Jenny mentioned, we're also working with them to look at how do we reduce the impact of toxic chemicals in other categories, such as food.
Thank you. Our next question is from Thomas. He says, animal rights groups like the Humane Society have made staggering headway in recent years by dealing directly with industry and avoiding politicians altogether. Do you believe something similar can occur with the environment during the Trump presidency?
Yes, Thomas, we don't really know what's to come with the Trump presidency. You know, it's very uncertain, but we do know here at EDF, having had an experience of working with companies for 25 years, that business and the environment can both win together, and we've seen those results from years of working together. And companies are increasingly seeing the business value creation and taking leadership stands on the environment. Walmart's sustainability goals are just one example. Other companies have made aggressive commitments to science-based climate reduction targets, for example, and are out in front and leading on these issues. So I really am very hopeful, and I'm feeling very optimistic that there's so much momentum in this area with leadership from companies on all range of environmental issues that there's no going back. And truthfully, we at EDF will not let them go back. We are really interested in moving things forward, and we know that all people in this country really do want safe consumer products and clean air and clean water. That much is very clear. And at EDF, we, having created the model of companies working directly with environmentalists, will continue to use our power, leveraging the marketplace to create those results.
Our next question is from Marcia. She asks, what might expedite companies' goals in the shorter term? 2025 seems a long way off considering harmful health effects that continue daily.
Well, I guess the thing that I think would expedite companies to move even faster is consumers demanding it. And as Boma and Jenny mentioned, we're seeing that over and over again. We're seeing consumers really speaking up and demanding safer products, cleaner products, and they want the things that they use every day to not harm the planet and to be safe to put on their bodies and safe to put in their bodies. So I think that's one way to create change in the near term. The other important way to create change in the near term is the approach that EDF has had over the years of really linking arms and working in the trenches with companies. I want to really do a shout out to our team member in Bentonville, Michelle Harvey, who created all this chemicals work and got it going from the very beginning, from having conversations with people inside Walmart and helping them understand how having safer products on their shelves could push them to be an industry leader, and they could get out in front of market demand for that. And we saw just last month the CEO of Walmart talk about how sustainability is driving business value in his conversation to Wall Street. He did a presentation where he talked about wanting to be the most trusted retailer and talked about Walmart's progress in its area in its goals on renewable energy, creating zero waste, and on chemicals. So, there's a deep understanding among leading companies that that sustainability is creating business value, and they're incorporating this deep into their business approach. So we have great hope that that will create great momentum for progress in the near term.
Our next question is from Sherry, who asks, do you have a comprehensive list available of household products that are non-toxic, not just the 8 targeted chemicals, but products that are completely safe?
Hi, this is Boma. No, we don't keep a list like that. And we have been focusing a lot of our work on working with Walmart and others in that value chain to really go forward on reducing, just as I mentioned with our safer product design pillar, on phasing out of toxic chemicals, so really holding them accountable to that, and identifying truly safer ones. One of the things that we had urged with Walmart when they first put together their policy was to take a leadership stance with their private label products as well, and putting those through the Safer Choice program, which we think is one of the good programs out there for getting more safer products on the marketplace. But carrying a list such as you asked is not something that we have on our website.
I would also add that really our goal with this work, even though we're not there yet, is that literally every product on the shelf is safe and not toxic. Working with Walmart is one way to democratize sustainability, and working across supply chains is how we scale it and get on the path to achieving that goal. So an ideal world would be that you don't need a list of the safe products, that they all are safe. And so that's really our focus.
Thank you. Our next question is from Michelle, who asks, how did the change towards consumer safety come about with Walmart, and how can we use the same incentives to trigger change in other large companies?
I can speak to that. Yeah, sure. So I think, Elizabeth alluded to the beginning of this story. When Michelle Harvey opened our office in Bentonville, her first meeting with Walmart was about chemicals. And having that repeated conversation with them, talking to them about the science, what we were starting to see emerging around potential hazards of certain chemicals being used in consumer products. Doing that type of education was really crucial. Something else that we saw is that many retailers and some brands were also facing penalties in certain jurisdictions around disposal of products, of hazardous waste in stores. And so that was something where they could also see a material risk to the business. Add into that the consumer demand that both Jenny and Elizabeth have spoken to, that's been rising as more and more consumers have become more educated about the types of ingredients in their products. And I think those are, three major things that really helped gain traction. And then finally, I think a lot of the time there's the identification of the problem, but not necessarily how do you go about solving it. And that's somewhere that I believe EDF is really unique in that we really help companies create the solutions to address these tough problems.
And
Thank you.
I'd just add that we have created a website, a Behind the Label website that really lays out the pillars as Boma illuminated them in the presentation, that any company and any retailer could take those and run with them. And as we mentioned, we're not just working with Walmart, but we're working with other retailers like Target and other consumer product companies to make sure innovations in chemicals are happening and that those safer chemicals are being incorporated into products as consumers demand safer products. So we know that to achieve the scale of change that we want to achieve, we even have to work beyond Walmart and work up and down the supply chain, and that is definitely a part of our strategy.
Our next question is from William, who asks, do we know that the chemicals are being replaced with more benign chemicals?
Hi. Yes, that's a good question. So as I mentioned earlier, we have the high priority chemicals, but Walmart also has been tracking chemicals that appear on 16 authoritative lists from around the globe. And by doing that, tracking whether or not there's any uptick, that's their initial method for really testing whether or not other known priority chemicals are entering into products. As they reported this past summer, when they reported the 95% reduction in the high priority chemicals, they were also able to report a reduction in the overall priority chemicals. We know this is one way of trying to track what's coming in, and we think as we move forward with them, we'll continue to refine that tracking going forward.
Oh, I'm so sorry. We had a question there from Joni and Tracy who asked, what about the palm oil conundrum? What are you doing to get palm oil out of consumer products?
Jenny, do you want to answer this one?
Sure. EDF's focus in regards to deforestation is primarily targeted right now at really shifting the landscape to get the governance right on the ground in the places where we're seeing a lot of deforestation. We have a lot of experience working on the ground in Brazil in particular, which is more focused on beef and soy production. But the approach we're taking is applicable in Southeast Asia where palm oil is mostly grown. And that approach is to really have a two-pronged approach where we use the power of the supply chain to get companies sourcing in areas where deforestation has been eliminated and growers are being responsible on the ground. And pairing that with what we think is really important is the governance on the ground to make sure that the laws are in place to create the right incentives for the farmers in the first place. And so we hope by really building out this approach in Brazil, which is somewhat different than what a lot of other NGOs are doing in terms of certifications, which can result in maybe a pocket of land that's not being deforested, surrounded by deforestation. We're really trying to work at a state and regional level. So you have huge areas that are free of deforestation. And our theory here is that if we can do that well in Brazil, that we can export that approach to places like palm plantations in Southeast Asia.
Our next question is from Irene, who says, it sounds like a huge success in reducing products with cancer-causing toxins from distribution and sales. Is this data being shared with the Cancer Moonshot Project as it reflects the paradigm of prevention and reduction of exposure?
Great question. We haven't personally shared that, but I definitely just wrote that down. I think that's a great example, a great idea to do. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Our next question is from Maynard, who asks, doesn't product reformulation A, cost time, and B, involve contractual inefficiencies because of the cost of renegotiating production contracts with the manufacturer they contract to produce the products they redesign?
Can you repeat that one more time, Emily? Sorry.
Sure. Pull it back up here. Doesn't product reformulation A, cost time, and B, involve contractual inefficiencies because of the cost of renegotiating contracts with the manufacturers who produce the products they redesign?
Okay. Sure. Yeah. Product reformulation can be more costly. It can also lead to cost savings for companies. I think the thing to keep in mind is that product reformulation happens pretty often. Sometimes it's to change suppliers. Sometimes it's to change a manufacturing process. In this case, it's about changing the specific ingredients or the specific ingredient mix. I think there are lots of things that go into that process. This is just one trigger for product reformulation, but I would say that it's a process that does happen quite a bit, and especially in the personal care product sector.
And our next question is from Isabel, who asks, do you think your current corporate partners will join you in advocating for maintaining environmental protection?
We've seen our current corporate partners join us in this journey to advocate for environmental protection, and we expect nothing less going forward. And really the reason why is that after years of trying to convince companies that doing what's right for the environment is also good for their business, now they really get it, and they really are incorporating sustainability deep into their business plans and the core of their business. It's in their DNA. And so it's producing great business results. And frankly, smart companies are looking out at the landscape and realizing supply chain risks with climate change, and they're also looking out and hearing from customers who want safer and healthier products, and they're realizing that drought and availability of inputs for their manufacturing processes and chemicals that affect the environment are really a core part of their business. And so being proactive and addressing those things is just simply good business. We've seen that over and over again. It's it's often driving cost reductions, and it's certainly getting employees excited and bringing in consumers. Consumers consistently say that they want safer and healthier products, and they want companies to lead on these areas. We've seen that in the past, and we expect nothing different in the future.
Thank you. Our next question is from Mary Sue, who asks, are we limiting our requests and expectations to domestic interests, or are we asking companies to extend best practices to international locations?
Well, the world that we live in is global, right? The companies we work with are global entities. They sell products across the globe. They purchase products from suppliers who exist across the world and bring them here, and we send products all over the world. So it's the inevitable reality of global supply chains. And so our work and our approach here at EDF has been to use the power that we have in finding the key leverage points in every supply chain and then pushing that change throughout the supply chain. So we try and find where is the best point to act and do that. Walmart's a great example of that, but working with companies, their suppliers in China and elsewhere, and linking arms also to try and help create the momentum for policy change, which is, of course, also critical.
Thank you. Our next question is from Gretchen, who says, many customers don't understand the environmental impacts that they should be concerned about. What are the best methods for educating consumers that you have observed?
Jenny, I'm wondering if you wanted to answer that.
Yeah, I think it's a really good question and a really challenging one. It seems to be something, to some extent, everyone avoids because it is so challenging to, change individuals' behavior and get them the education they need to make informed decisions. I was recently at a food forum conference hosted by Wall Street Journal, and many CEOs of food companies were on stage, and it was really interesting to see them field questions about, pretty controversial issues and, where they stood. And frequently the answer was, we don't really care what's right or wrong. We're providing our customers with the products that they want. So I think it's challenging that if companies are at times following customer demand and customers aren't necessarily informed about maybe the risks of the things that they're buying or aware of the impact that they have, can be a negative feedback loop. And so I think, we're thinking about ways that consumers can be engaged. I think we've advocated for a long time with our corporate partners to do more communication on package in store. It's often an uphill battle to demonstrate how that communication pays off for them on the bottom line. And I think that's a battle we will continue to fight, because I do think that's one way to help educate customers. I think, unfortunately, part of it, too, is, just people spending the time and understanding that they kind of need to care, which no one, I myself don't like to hear. I would love to be able to just walk in and buy products and know that they're safe. And I think that's why our approach in trying to democratize sustainability for products is so important, because the reality is people make purchasing decisions in split seconds. And oftentimes, they don't have time to read the package closely or, use a QR code to then look at a website. But for the time being, those seem to be some of the better ways to try and engage customers. And I think also the growth in online shopping does seem to present more opportunities to communicate with customers on attributes like sustainability, and I think that's an avenue we will continue to push our partners to explore as well.
Our next question is from Marcia. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I just wanted to say, I think the simple way to say it is here at EDF, our position is that you shouldn't need a PhD in chemistry to protect your family, and that's why we have the approach we do.
That's great. Marcia asks, is there any legal strategy to strengthen regulation of existing and new chemicals given the change in the U.S. government, including partnering with international efforts?
Boma, do you want to try and address that one?
Sure. I think we're looking at all our options with the changing landscape right now. I think going forward, we'll have a clearer picture of how best to act with respect to the political climate.
And our next question is from Amy, who asks, similar to the earlier question about educating consumers, are you aware of any marketing efforts that Walmart has taken around the work EDF and Walmart are doing for personal care products? I see press releases and corporate info only.
Jenny, do you want to speak to that?
Oh, go ahead, Jenny. Yeah.
Go ahead, Boma.
I was going to say yes, it has been corporate documents so far, but it's just as Jenny had mentioned earlier, this is an area that we have pursued with them more and more in terms of getting consumer awareness. With respect to the chemicals work, I will say that one of our big pushes, which did make it into their policy and that they have taken action on, is to increase consumer awareness of ingredients and products. And we think that's a really great first step to help arm the consumer. But I think there are definitely other ways in store potentially or otherwise for Walmart to better communicate of the sustainability work that it's doing and some of the successes that it's had and how that impacts the products on its shelves. And I don't know, Jenny, did you want to add more to what's on the horizon, or?
No, I think that covers it.
All right, we've probably got time for one or two more questions. We've gotten a few that are along a similar theme. I'm gonna fire off together here. Wanda had asked if there was a plan for a logo on labels that would indicate that they're safer. And we also had messages from Corinne and Elizabeth and Lauren asking about the environmental working group's various lists of safe products and if EDF is working with them.
So on the first one about the logo, so the one major one that I've mentioned before is the Safer Choice program. So not only is that a program that involves a rigorous review of the ingredients in a product and then the performance of a product, looking at health and safety, but at the end of the day, a product can have the logo, the Safer Choice logo, on its packaging as an indicator. And there are a few other programs that are somewhat similar in that regard. The Cradle to Cradle program, for example, that you can also have. Once going through that program, also have a logo on your product, and with that program, they do look at chemical safety as well as part of that program. And then, could you repeat the second question, Emily?
Yes, it was quite a few people actually had asked us about the list that the Environmental Working Group puts out and wanted to know if we're doing any work with them.
Okay. So we have and will continue in the future to interact with environmental working group on certain issues related to sustainability. Yeah.
Great. Well, we're just about out of time here. It's 9 o'clock. I see that we had about 8 or 9 questions we didn't get to, so we'll follow up with you by email. I want to extend a thank you to all 3 of our presenters for sharing so much good information with our members tonight. And I hope that all of you had a great time here. And do take that 3-question feedback survey when you're leaving so you can let us know how we did.